millennials are the biggest consumer group of all time. And they're super divorced from the fact that music is a physical item, right? We used to have these albums with liner notes or CDs. Now music is this digital entity that lives on Spotify or that you download directly to your computer. There's no physical element to it. Do you think that that's had like an effect on the perceived value of music?
Go on, Claudius.
That question goes to me, I guess. Well, I think, first of all, what's happening with technology, it's so disrupting how we consume music. It's really great for the industry, and I have to say, I think we are at the digital stone age right now, because it will constantly evolve how we perceive and how we value and how we consume music. So I think in the past we had CDs. You mentioned like all the physical business, vinyls, cassettes, and how people now explore, discover music is on any digital channels. It's everywhere. So we as the music industry, we need to look at all these channels, all of the channels again. Some are legal, some are not legal, some are not licensed yet. So those channels are all very important. And I think the young people, the new millennials, or even younger generations, we need to look at them, how they discover music. It's very different than from the past.
Yeah.
Go on.
Well, I guess speaking from an artist standpoint, you know, I think there's definitely a lost aspect not having something physical to gravitate to from an artist standpoint, because you know that's what people when I was young, when I opened up a CD packaging and got to read the inserts in the CD and I got to feel the CD,
yeah.
it meant a lot to me as an artist, and obviously you could see your value from a recording side. You see the value you put into a CD, but I guess subsequently it's changed, and I know obviously this is a little bit away from the actual label side of it, but artists we've kind of maintained in a sense of being able to tour more, our music being heard by many more countries as opposed to just where we come from, and you know I think so there's a give and a take in that world. Obviously.
Certainly. I mean, consumers used to pay, you know, $10.99 for an album, right? Like, with the liner notes, it's a physical copy. Now you spend $9.99 for Apple Music or Spotify, and you literally have every song imaginable. So it's got to be some kind of revenue loss for not having that physical item when the spend is the same for unlimited amount of music. So touring, has that really been the supplement to that?
It's, you know what, for me it's actually always been a supplement. As an artist, you know, especially if you do believe in your music, and there's not enough platforms out there that can compete with what the monster record labels, their system, the system that they have in play. And it is a system, it's a big system, and there's a lot of people that work behind it. And you know, my time dealing with my personal label, my label back in America, I've gotten to build great relationships with the people that work at the label, but I also realize that it's such a big system that it's hard for a little person to get involved if they don't have the finances or if they don't have the network. So I created an app pretty much to kind of work around that, per se, so you can still feel good about creatively doing music and putting it out to the public and let the public decide whether they like it or not. And then from there, you can have discussions with labels, etc. But let's bring it back to the creative process now, to where people are still having fun making music, as opposed to being worried about, you know, who's what label exec is going to see it so that they can get signed. So.
No, but that's a conduit for that. Actually, you're kind of servicing it up. I mean, SoundCloud now, there's so many people making music, more than ever before, and having some kind of siphoning method is pretty powerful, actually.
And it helps everyone. One of the reasons why I also created the app was because we have producers who I feel kind of have like an unjust position in the music industry. As an artist, I've been responsible for paying producers, but once I cut them a check for, let's say, $5,000, $10,000, that's the last of the money they'll ever see. So what I did was pretty much create an app for anyone who's producing music to kind of monetize from record one, the same way me as an artist would do, is to find consumers, artists like myself, to come in and pay for records one record at a time. So, for example, instead of paying $10,000 for a record, I'd rather have an artist pay $1 for a record, record to it, see if the people like it, and then 10,000 artists can spend on the same record. So, just a little bit of a different strategy.
Incremental steps, yeah. Well, for years, music mashups and DJ mixes have been illegal, or not illegal, but they haven't been included in the streaming services. So Spotify and Tidal and Rdio previously haven't been able to include these mixes because it's very prohibitive to find all of the publishers included in that one song. Now, Apple Music has changed that. They just basically bought a technology that identifies anything in the stream, finds the publisher, finds the rights holders. Do you really think that it's a game changer for streaming?
Absolutely.
Yeah?
Completely. I mean, a game changer to a certain extent. It will not change things overnight. It will take a lot of time until most of the things are sorted for that technology to actually drive more consumption of mixes, legal consumption of mixes. I mean, in fact, DJs are out there since a very long time, and what they do, they create mixes in every club, every night. But it's not possible to monetize from those. So you have artists, old artists. I mean, if you ask the Beatles today if they would like a hip-hop mix to be done with their music, they might say, okay, do the mix first and then let me decide. Right? So it's kind of very tricky because we as the majors, we need to respect the rights of our huge back catalog of all of our artists. Right? But what's happening is really incredible that this technology is so very good that identifies mixes, and we are in discussions with Dubset, this is the company that you're referring to at the moment, to come to a license agreement. There are some labels, some artists that will give their rights in blank. So DJ or producer will upload some mix, will get approval immediately, or it will send to the repertoire owner for approval. Right? So it's really great. So the SoundCloud was operating in a very gray area. And now we're coming to a situation that these services, Mixcloud is another one. So there are many, many services out there. YouTube itself, right?
Yeah.
And it's like cat and mouse. We have to take things down, not because we are the majors, but we have to respect the owners. They call it song raping, right? If I take a song of you and I make some crazy, funny chicken dance music with it, you might not like it. Right?
I'd love it. I'd love him to do that. Do it with one of ours.
So again, it's very interesting that technology creates this disruption.
Yeah. Certainly. Well, what's changed in the SoundCloud kind of milieu of like label or artist scouting?
Okay, interesting question. I think, let me point out that we as the majors, in emerging markets, we work very, very differently than in developed markets. So here we are, in fact, like a startup. We face big challenges. There are no collecting societies. We're missing here, I'm looking after 20 countries. We're missing huge revenues from collecting societies, radio stations, hospitality, venues, airlines are not paying royalties. I'm happy that we have signed the first networks. It's a great achievement, and there are talks since about 15 years. So there is great stuff happening because we pushed for it. So this stopped us until now from doing our core business, which is do proper scouting, proper A&R, be out there. Out there means be on SoundCloud, be on YouTube, and we want artists to do that. Develop your own app, be your own product manager. You need to stand up. You need to be a good social marketeer. You need to be a good product manager. You need to be a good communicator. You need to be an entertainer. If you are an artist, you need to find your spot so that we as the labels hear you very much. Right? So I think A&R in developed markets, to come back to your questions, it has definitely also changed. Justin Bieber, for example, was just big on YouTube, and one guy flew over and signed him up quickly. Yeah? And that's already very long time ago. So, but now we have SoundCloud. We're exploring things like, I mean, with Holophonic, for example, they are great producers. You've done lots of special projects for us. We've put you in a very diverse project.
How did you guys find one another?
Across a crowded room.
Oh,
yeah.
Seriously?
No. There's none of that here. How did we find each other? Actually, do you know what? It was pre-Universal EMI merger and pre kind of the real push that's happening now. And you know, we did exactly what everybody here is doing. We took a track that we believed in, and we went to the label and said, look, this is what we believe in. But it was one of those things. We went with the portfolio. So for us at that time, you know, I daily, I worked out, I've got 16 apps on my phone that I use to talk about my music and what we're doing and how we're talking about it. And so our presence on all of those platforms collated into a kind of a background check of the ability for us to take our music from something that was subjective that you know, my mum liked to something that, you know, a wider, broader community can engage with. And again, you know, from an A&R perspective, a lot, you know, labels have a lot to do with that still, but that's also coming back to the way the artists communicate, because on a daily basis, we're on, I mean, Recordgram will do this. I use BRAP, which is here as well, which is another platform that kind of connects producers and singers, and that's artist-driven. So you've got SoundCloud, yes, but SoundCloud app is horrific, and I will say it to their faces. You know, I don't even know what's happening with it. You know, it's like, okay. But you know, you have to use all these things and get your music out there. But also, as well as the kind of sonic side of it, as it'll be called, there's the way it looks, the way it feels, the way you're using new things, and the way other people do things. So we had Stefan Lamar on a new single who we discovered. He was always there, but we found him and we connected at the act. We had Kevin Murphy when we were having a very classy family dinner out at Hard Rock Cafe. And then we had a whole range of guys that we linked with here. And it's just, it's grown and grown and grown. And so Dia Hassan from Juliana Down on the ground here. So we and they have connected and been their own A&R machine through a unification of the scene that needs to happen more. You know, that it needs to be more collaboration here. But that's how you get music out there, by connecting the dots of people that are passionate about it.
Who are you excited about in this region?
Who am I excited about?
Burgeoning artists that you have your eye on.
I like Carl and the Red Hand Mafia. I think they're great. And they're alive, you know. The good thing about where we are now is there was just bits and pieces of music in different genres. And, you know, you go to award ceremonies and you have best urban night, best house night, best dance night, best this night, best that night.
Right, it's fragmented.
This is like by awards. Best that night, best night. And then you have best local act. I don't know whether to go up there juggling, you know. So for me, there should be, I know obviously that's how people spend money, but for me, there should be, and that's what's great about this region, there should be best indie band, best rock band, best hip-hop artist, best dance artist, and even subgenres of that. And so Carl and the Red Hand Mafia are doing their kind of indie get up and dance vibe that's going on. And then there's really small independent artists that are at Right Market every single week in Zaville Park, where there's a collective cultural revolution that's going on of people that are creating here, whereas people believe that here we go, oh, what's the US doing? Let's copy that here. It doesn't happen, you know. We spend too much time allowing people to pass through, take money and leave, whereas I think now people are being demanded to pass through, leave behind some culture and work with the people that are here, and then you can go. We don't take their passport or anything.
Did you want to add to that?
Well, yeah, I mean, with radio, for example, playing Rihanna, I love it. But at the same time, if they play it 20 times a day, it kills the demand to go on new platforms, to go on Ankami, to go on Deezer or any other music service, which is really bad. So I agree. So where do the young people go? Where do the music lovers go? They go on digital. Right? So radio is completely sticking to mainstream, unfortunately. We have a station that only plays 80s music. Yeah, it's cool, you know, but it's just 80s. So here, again, we need more artists also to change that. In order that we have more scenes coming up, that we have more live performances, and so on. I wanted to add on, like, the artist relationship that we have, because every contract with an artist is very different from each other. I think that's very important. There's a completely wrong perception on, like, how major labels work together with artists, right? So it is like a marriage. We really need to understand what is the benefits that every party will bring to the table. With Holophonic, for example, they are very much grown-ups. they are techies, they love social media, they understand their production very much, they know what they do. So we are just filling the gaps. Like in that extent, we're doing brand partnerships. So if there's an airline, if there's FMCG brand, whatever, we bring on opportunities for them to fill it up. There are other artists who are have not been trained to speak, who would not be able to speak on a panel. Those ones, we help them to do their product management properly, and we fill the gaps. Money, yes, sometimes we spend, sometimes we don't spend. It really depends on what is needed for the artist to become big now. Yeah.
Can I just say importantly, though, that the emotion and the feeling is still in music. It's very easy to presume that, and that's why things like your app exist, you know. It's very easy to presume, because we sit up here talking about a business perspective, that we're all salesmen and somebody else wrote the track and blah, 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 that type of thing. And it was just a realization that we had to be more self-aware of the way we got ourselves and our music out there, because we were reacting to the fact we were bored of not getting enough people buying the music and not getting enough people hearing it. And then you have to try and research and find the avenues to reach all of these people, you know. So there's the emotion. We don't, you know, there are a few people that just do that, but there's still a lot of people that have extreme passion behind what they do. And the sharing of beats and the sharing of lyrics and the live stuff, that's a live representation of that, you know.
Absolutely. The democratization of technology, that plays a huge aspect of that. Wouldn't you agree, Sean?
Absolutely. I mean, you know, one of the, you know, I just to kind of turn the conversation, I had a conversation the other day with a friend of mine. She works at Radio in America, and we were talking about emerging artists in the United States of America. And, you know, I'm a little bit past my time. You know, I'm more in the technology world now, less in the musical world. And I found myself critiquing the newer artists of the American generation, especially in hip-hop. And, you know, I had a laugh the other day because some of this music I was actually dancing to, but I really don't understand anything they're saying in it. The language, everything is just so different from my era till now. So
certainly,
you know,
hip-hop is changes like every 3 years, I feel like, the vernacular of it. Yeah.
Absolutely, to the point now where I probably don't even understand half the music that's out there.
Yeah.
But you know, but the respect factor is there, like you said, is that, you know, I respect any musician that can kind of cultivate a sound or create, even if it's not something I agree with, to cultivate a sound or create a new strategy for emerging. And I think that's the biggest thing. Sometimes we critique people because they can't physically sell albums or records, but they are good at what they do. They may be the king of SoundCloud or the king of Instagram or eventually the king of Recordgram. And some of these platforms, we kind of got to look at that as monetization for these emerging artists, because that's what it will be in the future. It may not come in the form of physical currency or money, but it does come in, you know, popularity, which translates in some cases to money later on down the line. So.
Yeah, and it's much more of a immediate change when you have these tools in your hand, right? I mean, there's so many subgenres of rap now, waves to drill to all of these different, like, very, very, very pocketed subgenres. Chicago for drill, waves, the Atlanta sound and whatnot. But having that ability to kind of really be pervasive and up to the minute with that sound and the democratization of these tools, I feel like it's a huge game changer. But what would you guys define as success for the music industry in, like, the next 5 years? We can make it as general.
Not as individuals, good.
Yeah, we can make it as individualistic as your own
have to go back on
success.
everything we said about money.
Or we can make it the region, or we can make it music in general. But
success in the region is this unit. You know, I was here earlier and I was watching Hamdan Al-Abri and Disaster having the chat about independent artists. And, you know, one really valid point is that there doesn't exist across the region musically and within the UAE a unified music scene that is collaborative. And by collaboration, I don't mean that I need this guy to come and sing on our tracks. I don't mean that I'm going to force my beats on this guy. I mean that if we all take a step forward together, there's a great little image that I saw, a kind of meme thing of the rest of the world, and there's steps. The rest of the world are kicking each other down the steps, and all the Dutch are helping each other up. You know, if we talk about the electronic music scene, they've all risen up together, and that's one of the things that I think would be the perfect stepping stone for people to realize that it can be a collaborative thing here. How that works, whether that's a conference like this, whether that's a thing, you know, it's very, very competitive, and I think those competitive lines can be taken away, and the nature of the music scene is to get as many people outside as they go out, talking about what's happening here, and not make this a thoroughfare or a stopover for people, but to make this a place where you can actually gain creativity, creatively.
Well, are there residency programs
What
in
do you mean
Dubai
by-
specifically, in nightclubs and whatnot? Is
Yeah. You made it sound very much more official than the reality. Residency programs. There's people that get paid for playing in the same club again and again, you know, and yes, but those people are, for me, like they're the absolute stalwart of the scene. They're just as important as radio to us.
Right.
They're just as important in changing the opinion on our music. And they're undervalued because they're just the guy that does this, the guy that does that. You know, the whole kind of attitude towards that is separated. But again, that's moving up. You know, you have DJs that have followings here, and if we talk about live music, you know, we've been lucky. We played to, you know, over 250,000 people in the past 3 years here.
Wow.
In the UAE, that's with, you know, Flash, that's with Sundance, that's with, you know, playing at Media City. And for us, you know, that's amazing, and we can talk about things, and we can push the music, and we have other featuring artists with us. And I just think that collaborative things, and we're very open-armed. You know, we have people on YouTube comment say, when you come into Dubai, I'm like, I'll meet you in the Springs. You know, so we're here, you know, and I think the great thing is that people are starting to discuss more, and having us on stages like this means that a broader group of people realize that, you know, music is creativity. Creativity helps people get products out there, and everybody who has a product here, we can be the face of that, the same as we are Red Bull, or not necessarily the face. Yeah. But Red Bull and Adidas and things like that, you know, so
there is a scene here.
Yeah, there is a scene. It's burgeoning, and it's early doors, and I don't know whether there's an official face of music for you know, government-wise, but they really support and push it on you know, Market Outside the Box that happened in Burj Park. They had a full programming of emerging artists, so, you know, it's happening. And then, you know, to have Universal, to have, should I just say other labels? To have Universal, to have Sony, to have, you know, independent labels coming up, to have, you know, big apps starting to push other labels, that's positive. You need to have that competition at a business level for the rest of us to benefit at a creative level. I've spoken too much.
Yeah.
No, not at all. Yeah.
We appreciate that very much. I mean, we want to be challenged also. So I think it's great times, very interesting times. We want artists also to come to us to pitch. At the same time, we want to convince them, you guys have learned, you understand how we work. A major music label is not for every artist, clearly not, right? So but it's interesting times. You don't need a major label, to be honest, to make a great living, to be successful. And here, if I can send out one message also to artists, define success, please, because many artists, some are happy when they just get press coverage, right? To get press coverage, there are certain ways to get there. Some feel great when they have like millions of views on YouTube, which might not pay the DIWA bills, right? The utility bills. Some define success when they can plan a tour, right? And go on live performances. Some call it a success if they have a sports brand sponsoring them, right? So I think this is very important, that some artists have to learn here in order to really be happy. And there is great ways to be happy here in this business. It's great ways. I mean, you're getting some exposure now in the UK, in the US, which then can be a great step up to get global exposure.
What do you define success for the music industry in the next 5 years, in this region specifically?
Yeah, right. I mean, we have a very long-term strategic thinking, which is great that Universal Music, and we also representing Warner Music Group, by the way, it gives us the kind of flexibility to do the right things, so we shape the music industry, right? So we have taken content off from certain platforms, like a mobile operator in the UAE was monetizing from ringback tones. I think it's a small business, but it's a big business. I call someone and I hear the music, and I simply had to take it off because they only paid the label once, but they charged the consumer on a monthly basis. No other label wanted to follow me, but we need to take that step. We lose money for that 1 or 2 years until we have convinced the telco operator to change their business model and to properly pay the royalties on that. It's just one small example out of 80 different channels that we have built up in the last 5 years for monetization for artists, and not just monetization, but also promotion and distribution.
It's very difficult to put a value on music, you know. And especially here, that's one of the things that we've kind of, you know, I've been here for 10 years and been fighting, and Greg's been here for 15 years, and it's like, you know, to put a value on the person playing a guitar up on stage to everybody is really, really tough, because they can download that for free if they want to, or they can pull that off for free, or you just put that on and blah, blah. You know, but like you say, it's without getting emotional and being too, you know, being practical. There's as much effort that goes into that as every other part of an event or part of a moment or an experience that somebody has. So it should be valued in the same way.
Yeah, certainly. And Sean, in the next 5 years, what does a success for the music industry, Recordgram, look like for you?
I guess I can answer that 2 different ways. I can speak specifically in regards to Dubai, because I've spent a lot of time in this market. I think global acceptance for artists, for local artists in Dubai is what constitutes success here, in my opinion. I mean, in a lot of regions around the world, is, to me, getting accepted in UK, in US, in Asia, and having the ability to tour, having the ability to put an artist on television from here so that people from here can view that artist as an idol, so that they can be just like them when they grow up. And I think that's an important factor when when creating an emerging market, and being in an emerging market like Dubai, is creating that person, having that scapegoat, so to speak, for a Universal to go out, or any label to go out and say, okay, they're now accepted in America. And one of the hardest things used to be gaining acceptance in the U.S. And I think now, as a U.S. citizen, we're more acceptable of global music. There's a lot of artists that are emerging. Well, we've always been, you know, in collaboration with UK artists. We've always been in collaboration with a few artists around the world, but we're accepting artists from France, artists from Japan.
Yeah, world music, yeah.
Exactly. So I think, you know, and then speaking on a broader spectrum, I think success is measured, to me, about when you're an artist, what you give back to the music industry, in a sense, once you're not done with it, but once you're done with being a musician. I think it's important sometimes to create channels to give back for other emerging artists or other artists that want to come up, because the hardest thing sometimes to do, and I see the clock ticking, so I'm going to wrap it up. The hardest thing sometimes to do is, as an artist, is to be mentored.
Put another 10 minutes.
Is to be mentored, you know, by someone like the people up here. That's the hardest thing sometimes to do, is to get the right word. I never had a mentor when I came into the business, and I learned everything from kind of falling to the floor and learning how to get back up. And I think it's important now for me to go back and teach people the mistakes I've made, so that they won't make the same mistakes. And I think that constitutes success for myself and other artists out there.
It's wonderful, yeah. So I think we'll leave it there, but you heard it here.